What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. Welcome to Splash City. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, we're going to take a look at the Clippers and the state of this team right now as they are down 2-1 to the Suns in the Western Conference Finals, coming off a big victory in Game 3 last night. Kind of just wanted to talk about this team. We haven't checked in with them for a while, since really the first round when they were down to the Mavericks, but they've, battled through a lot of adversity since then. This is a different team. The state of Kawhi Leonard's injury is still up in the air, and Paul George has been playing well, so let's just kind of go through the Clippers and what they've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks. So you've heard of Game 6 Clay, you've heard of Masked Kyrie, you've heard of Hoodie Mello. Have you heard of the Game 3 Clippers? Because this is becoming a thing where they have gone down 2-0 in every series they've been in this postseason and been able to come back in the first two so far, and looks like they might have a potential to do that against the Suns. I would still pick Phoenix to win the series at this point, but it's a good sign for the Clippers to be able to get Game 3. So they clearly make some adjustments midway through the series. Going home has been a huge advantage for them, at least in the last two series, while they've had home court advantage. And so, being able to get, come together and get those big victories in these Game 3s is got to be big for the confidence of this team, because they know that they've done it before. They're right now they're down against Phoenix, but they've come back from this same exact deficit twice before this postseason. So the team is not lacking any confidence right now. They're playing good basketball. They're playing together. They're playing tough. And that's got to give them a lot of optimism that they can come back and eventually, win this series, or at least make this one close, because they've proven that they can do this. And we'll see if they're able to, make this one closer against the Suns here. It's so strange to me because the way that this Clippers team is playing right now is kind of what I thought they were going to be last season. And they're doing this without Kawhi because, a lot of people, I've talked about this before on this channel, but I picked the Clippers to win the title last year, prior to the bubble and all that stuff. I had picked them to win the title because on paper, they look like a really, really good team. You obviously have Kawhi, who is a top 5 player in the league, Paul George, who, despite some playoff struggles, many people have in the top 15 at the very least of players in the NBA. And then you got a lot of good role players, guys who can hit shots, guys who can, play good defense on the wing. And they felt like they were a really deep roster, especially last year. I felt like this season they lost a little bit of that depth over the offseason, even though they kind of made some switch ups and obviously some moves at the deadline this past year. And I felt like they had kind of proven in the bubble that maybe they weren't the team that everybody thought they were. But as they're playing right now, they look like they're sort of hitting that ceiling with they have all these role players hitting shots. They're able to play good defense. They're doing enough to slow down Devin Booker, at least in Game 3. Chris Paul didn't have a super great game as well. They're kind of making life tough on the Suns players, and they're just playing together, and they're playing strong basketball, and this is kind of, reminding me of what I thought the ceiling of this team was going to be. So, can they come back in this series, and can they actually win the NBA title this year? Well, it's a pretty wide open title race at this point. We kind of went through this with the Hawks yesterday, but all the 4 teams that are left, you can make a case for any of them that they could realistically win the title this year, and I would personally gravitate towards the Phoenix Suns. I think they're the best team remaining, but the Clippers, they have the upside necessary to be able to pull this off, even without Kawhi Leonard, because we've seen them battle through this adversity against the Jazz. They were able to come back without Kawhi. Now they've got a game against the Suns without Kawhi. And so we'll be able, we'll see if they're able to really maximize what they're doing here. But if they continue to play at this level, hit the shots at the level they're doing it, playing good team defense, then they can really beat anybody. And especially with the 4 teams that are left, all of them are flawed basketball teams. And so the Clippers are not going to run into a juggernaut here. All these teams are beatable, and so they could potentially make a nice run here. So, Kawhi Leonard, is he going to be able to come back this postseason? Nobody knows, because we really haven't heard a peep out of the organization as to, what the nature of his injury is. They haven't, ruled him out completely for the playoffs, which I guess you could take that as a good sign, or maybe it's just, a tactical advantage to not let Phoenix know what to expect. But, Kawhi's been rehabbing, apparently. He didn't travel with the team to Game 1 and 2 against Phoenix in Phoenix. And he was present at Game 3, but he wasn't on the bench. That's just kind of how Kawhi rolls. He likes to kind of be off to the side a little bit, and that's okay. That's his style, right? But we have no idea really what the nature of his injury is. The initial report that it was something to do with the ACL, but it's probably not a tear. I mean, I assume we would know by now if it was a tear and he was going to be out for a full year. So I don't think that's what it is. It's something in his knee. Maybe it's a sprain. Maybe it's a very mild sprain of the ACL, and he's able to, potentially return for it in the finals or maybe late in this round. Who knows exactly what the nature of Kawhi Leonard's injury is. They've been calling it a knee sprain for what it's worth. That's what the team is listing him out with. But like I said, it's not like it's not like they've ruled him out for 6 months and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. It's just like, we just don't know at this point. He might be able to come back at some point in this playoffs, but it's clearly an uncertainty. So obviously with Kawhi Leonard back, that would greatly improve their chances of winning the NBA Finals this year. If they're able to take care of business against the Suns and maybe Kawhi comes back in the finals, I think they would be the favorite among the 4 teams remaining, just because we know how good Kawhi is and we've seen him do this before. And if he's healthy, this Clippers team is really, really scary. So I have no idea, if he's going to be able to come back. If he does, then the Clippers are in a really, really good spot. But without him, they're still good, but I just somehow feel like they're going to eventually run out of gas. But listen, you got to give a lot of props to this team for what they've done so far, because they were on the verge of, an organizational collapse in the first round. Being down 2-0 against the Mavericks, and coming back in the way that they did and finishing off that series, not only coming back from 2-0, but from down 3-2 as well, and being able to force that Game 7 and get that victory, especially after what happened to them in the bubble last year and all the narratives around a lot of the players on this team. They didn't fold, and they were able to come back not only then, but also in the next round against the Jazz without Kawhi Leonard, their best player. Paul George has stepped up. He's kind of put that pandemic P narrative to rest. He had a lot of playoff struggles at points in his career, especially over the last couple of seasons. But this year, despite a little bit of poor shooting early on against Dallas, he has been absolutely sensational, especially recently. So Paul George is a guy who I think deserves a lot of credit for stepping up his play this year in the playoffs. And you've got a lot of role players stepping up as well. Obviously, the Terrence Mann game in Game 6 against the Jazz was huge for them. You have guys like Luke Kennard, who was not in the rotation for most of the regular season. He has been playing recently and hitting shots for them. Patrick Beverley has been playing great defense recently and hitting shots as well. Marcus Morris is kind of hot and cold, but he's been playing well also. Zubac is a guy who has been willing to, take a diminished role when the game calls for it, but when he's called upon to play, I think he's been, doing well, even though the plus-minus stats, and they usually lose when he plays a lot of minutes, although I just don't think that's really his fault. I think it's just kind of the way the matchups work out for Zubac, but I want to give props to him for staying ready, being willing to accept a different role depending on what the game situation calls for, and he played a good game last night as well. So Zubac is a guy who I think deserves more credit than a lot of people are giving him. Anyway, the Clippers have a deep roster. They got a lot of talented role players, and they're all playing well right now, and with Paul George playing at this ceiling, even without Kawhi, I do think this team, is capable of beating Phoenix. Like I said, I still would pick the Suns, but I'm hoping that we'll have a good series, because, it's 2-1 now, and we'll see how Game 4 goes, but yeah, I'm excited for the rest of it. But yeah, I think that's about all I have on my check-in with the Los Angeles Clippers. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about this team. Are they going to be able to come back in this round, or is it going to be, are they going to hit their ceiling in the Western Conference Finals? Even though they've finally made the Western Conference Finals after all these years, but is that their ceiling this season? I would love to hear your thoughts down below. But yeah, with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.